Nee, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. We had a good discussion in part one and about the environment. And if you haven't listened to that show yet or watched it, go back and find it on our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, so you can find us in several places. And take a listen because me and I talked about a few things regarding the environment, mostly in Vietnam. And I just wanted to continue that. Um, when we were talking last time, you were very pessimistic that the government could do anything to improve the environment. Like we talked about littering, for example. And I shared with you that there were many laws in the United States that were passed to put penalties on people who littered, and then people stopped littering. But you thought that that probably couldn't work in Vietnam, that it would be hard to find the people who did it. But
Right.
um, but I don't know. I was thinking about that more. And a couple of years ago, there was a new law that was passed that increased the penalty for drinking and driving. And so suddenly people didn't drink so much alcohol anymore. And
It's,
isn't that true?
it worked. It worked that time, but not this time.
Yeah.
It worked that year.
Okay, so yeah, because this law was passed a couple of years ago, and I just remember people suddenly changing their behavior when I would go out drinking with friends. I mean, I usually walk or bicycle, or I don't drive, so it wasn't a problem for me. But my friends who would be driving, they either didn't drink or they only drank a little bit, and that was a big change. They were worried about the financial penalty. So didn't the law work? So couldn't the same thing happen with litter?
I think the law about drinking alcohol while driving, it just worked for a short time. At that
Okay.
time, when the law just published,
Hmm.
and people just remember it for like a couple of months, and after that, it come back to normal because the government
Okay.
they wasn't strictly anymore. They weren't strict about it anymore. So
Oh, okay. So the
back to normal.
government didn't. So people discovered that the government wasn't enforcing it. They weren't really collecting the money.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that would be a problem. But in the United States, when there was a penalty for littering, then people got in trouble for littering and had to pay. So then they stopped littering. So
Mm.
maybe the problem is enforcement. Maybe there's just a feeling that the government is not going to enforce or just be strict about the law. Okay, but if the government wanted to, it could. In this case, maybe it doesn't really want to.
I'm not sure because they are not like they just care about it in a certain term, but and then
Hmm,
after that they move to another problem. They have another problem,
that's
and
true. That's
people
true. Like
people
I
can't.
remember a few years before that, it was the sidewalks, wasn't it? The government was saying that people could not sell food on the street, or people had to keep the sidewalk clear. And for a few months, people did, but a few months later, like you said, it went back to normal. And
Right.
so, yeah, maybe I guess that is a problem for, in my opinion,
Yeah.
if you're going to pass a law, you should enforce it. But maybe that doesn't happen so much here in Vietnam, or maybe it's only sometimes.
So how's it going in the US? Like because I just wondering, when I also I traveled to the US before, and I see
Mhm.
that like the streets, all cities I've been through, they were all clean. They're so clean. Like I see no rust in the street, and everything's
Mhm.
clean. And I have some couple of friends in LA, and they lived there since they were born, and they told me that like America is not like what you see, and I've been to LA there before, and I see LA so clean. And they
Mhm.
told me that LA is full of trash. It's like you see trash everywhere, and like people live on the street, and I've
Mhm.
seen nothing.
Oh, okay. They say that now.
Yeah, they see
They're
that
saying that
now.
now. Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a time that litter was a big problem, like I said, in Los Angeles and everywhere. When I was young, there was a lot of litter. I think it was pretty similar to, what we often see here in Vietnam. But the fines, the penalty, it works. So there's lots of, there's not so much litter anymore. Except in some places where there are homeless people. And homelessness is a big problem in major cities like Los Angeles, and we don't have that big of a problem here in Hanoi. So there are some areas of Los Angeles where homeless people are, and they don't have a home. They don't have a place to sleep. They sleep in parks and they sleep under bridges, and they usually try to stay together because together there's more, it's safer. It's like, they look out for each other. And in those situations, there will be trash, and it looks horrible. I hate seeing it when I go back. So it's a big problem in society. You don't usually see it in movies and Hollywood movies and on YouTube videos and things, that depict American life. So there is a lot of litter, where there are homeless people because they don't have any place to put things, and they have other things to worry. They have other things to worry about, of course. So, but outside of that, like in parks, on the beach, it is very clean, like you observed, because the government put lots of fines on and penalties for throwing rubbish on the beach or in a park. And young people also, it started similar like what we were talking about in part one. Young people were better at taking care of the environment than the older people were. And so as time went on, the younger people became adults, and they kept those good habits. So, I think both you were right in that you traveled to Los Angeles and you observed it to be very clean. But I think your friends who live there are also right, especially when they're remarking about the homeless situation, which is an increasing problem in the States. So the homeless population is going up, and that's not a good thing. What else about the United States are you curious about?
I think it's just the stress, and I know I don't see any noise pollution there, except in New
No.
York. Except in New York, because there are always helicopters.
There's always helicopters. There's always sirens for emergency vehicles in New York.
Oh, right. And I will remember every 4 or 3 a.m. in New York, I always hear the sound of the police.
Yes.
And
yes.
that worked me up.
Yes, always. When I lived in New York, it was the same thing. You get used to it. You get used to it after a while. But there's the sound of police, and there's the sound of ambulances. And there's also the sound of garbage collection, big trucks collecting garbage. But outside of New York, so you didn't hear a lot of noise pollution. There's also strict laws about making noise and being quiet, which people have to follow, or else they have to pay a penalty. And I sometimes wish that was the case in Hanoi. In Hanoi, there's things that I like in Hanoi. I can't say that I like things to be too strict. I mean, too many rules and too strict. But Hanoi can be too loud. The trucks can be too loud. The construction, of course, can be loud at almost any time of the night. Shops that play loud music in front of the shop, even in places where people have apartments and houses, that just is like, we didn't talk about noise pollution too much last time, except construction, but shops and restaurants can make a lot of noise in Vietnam. And that's something that you don't hear so much in the States. It's even quieter in Europe, I think. The laws in Europe are even more strict. We call those in English. In English, we call these quality of life laws that are there so that your quality of life is better. You can sleep better. You can relax better.
Right. I can take an example. of
Mhm.
the street vendor near my house. Like
Mhm.
every afternoon, they sell bundo, and like it's really noisy. It's really noisy.
Yes.
I couldn't sleep. Even I sleep like far away, like kind of far,
Mhm.
not too far,
Mhm.
but like a it's not near the like design, but I still hear it, and like I always complain about it. But
Mhm.
they keep selling and they keep talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also think that the reason is the government, the police, they are not strict about it, and there's also like some story that behind them, because the sellers or the person who manage the constructions, they just give money, or they already do something to protect them from the penalty.
I see. I see. So they do things so that the police won't bother them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Um, Also in the United States now is drilling for oil for energy. And we drill a lot of oil and we burn a lot of oil. And I don't think the United States is doing as good a job as it can to transition away from oil and what we call fossil fuels that are burned, and transitioning to renewable energy like solar power and wind power and hydro, like water power. I think China is doing a much better job at moving forward in that area than the United States is. So that's the problem for the government we have right now. They give too many, um, they allow too many companies to drill for oil and burn oil. And that is, one of the things that's causing global warming and putting carbon in the atmosphere. So we could be doing so much more, but we don't, and we consume too much. I think conservation Americans consume so much more than per capita than any other country, and we need to start looking at solutions for that. But I'm not optimistic that the current government is going to do that because too many oil companies give money to the politicians, kind of the same way that the boomdo and the construction people give money to the police, so that so that they don't get in trouble. So on that level, I think last time I was more optimistic than you. But when it comes to oil policies and the carbon and the environment in the United States, I'm a little bit more pessimistic. We'll have to see what happens with that. Yeah. Lee, how is the traffic in Hanoi? Is it getting better or worse?
I'm not sure, but for me, it's getting worse because
Hmm.
people coming back to like is now back to normal life. It's back to normal, and people from others provinces they come to Hanoi, and it's getting crowded.
Right, right,
And I see a lot of traffic jam during rush hour.
right. So what can be done about that? Because the number of cars and the number of motorbikes is increasing a lot.
I'm not sure about that because I don't do much care about the traffic jam
Mhm.
or the traffic laws, but I hear some that in like the government is planning to ban the motorbike in
Right.
some like center areas in Hanoi.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I just think it is ridiculous because like many families they cannot afford for a car. So how could them travel to how can them travel to the city center?
Well, I mean, I think that they should put more into public transportation. Um,
Yeah,
like
because
for
oh,
example, there's a new metro we have in Hanoi.
mhm.
It's only one line right now, and it goes from Katling to Hadong, and it kind of goes to the south. But I know the government is planning to do more metro and subways, so that would be good.
Yeah, because that's
Um,
a way to protect the environment and
I
reduce the traffic jam.
Yeah, no, I'm a big believer in public transportation. In Hanoi, we only have buses.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and
it used to be really bad, and many of my friends they go to school by bus, and they say to me that it's improved now.
mm,
They heighten the quality of the buses.
right,
I'm not
right.
sure about that, but I think it might true.
Yeah. I mean, I take the bus pretty frequently, and I think it's a pretty good system, but it still doesn't connect so well with places that people go to work and to school. For example, the new metro system, I wrote it when it first opened, it was free for 2 weeks. So I went to write it because I'm very curious about this. And it's very modern. It looks very nice, and it is very nice. It's very comfortable and fast. You're above all the traffic. But it goes right by Royal City, but doesn't stop at Royal City. It passes in front of Royal City, but it doesn't stop there. And Royal City is a big shopping area. It's also
Mhm,
an area where many people live.
mhm,
But the closest metro stop to Royal City is, I think, more than 500 meters away.
mhm.
It's, a pretty long, you have to get off the metro and walk a long way to get to Royal City. So I think that was thinking, why isn't there a stop at Royal City? So, I mean, but other than that, I've seen the maps, and so there could be there'll be more lines in the future. I know that there's many delays, though. It takes longer than they think it's going to take, and it's over budget. So I don't understand why. Up in China, they build high speed rail very quickly. In
No,
just 10 or
I see
15 years, they built a lot of high speed rail and good public transportation. But in the United States, we have a very difficult time developing public transportation. And it seems in Vietnam, it's difficult to do.
yeah, it's difficult to do because it's have a previous story about that with China. I don't know
Yeah.
because I didn't live that. I wasn't born in that town,
Hmm.
but like I see that in America, people don't travel much in public transport.
Right, right.
Those,
Except in New York and a few big cities. But most people don't. That's true.
but I see that they're I don't know. I just wondering about the metro in Hanoi because do they sell like street vendor go there because it's gonna make the metro unclean. It's gonna be
Oh,
unclean in the future. I think so. And I see your news that there is a group of teenagers they use sprays and like color spray to spray on the metro.
in Hanoi.
We are in Hanoi, like just
Oh,
a couple of days after it's opened, and
okay.
they do the penalty for that.
There was a penalty.
Yeah, they
No
did a
penalty.
penalty for their teenage for that group. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure how much, but I know
Okay.
they also that they listened to they broke the public they broke the public stations. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure. Make it
Right.
unclean, not good looking.
Okay. Interesting. Well, many years ago in New York City, there was a problem with graffiti and painting on
Right.
trains.
Mhm.
And and then the city did something interesting. They decided to have a contest, an art contest to see who could paint the trains the most beautifully. And suddenly the trains were beautiful. It was like they gave up. They said they first tried to prevent it, to stop it, to ban it. But young people being young people, they were the young people were winning the battle. And so the city said, okay, we'll have a contest and we'll give a prize to the most beautiful train, the most beautiful paint job on the train. So then people kind of liked the painting on the train. It was kind of interesting.
I like it too, and I also like when that group of boys spray on it because it's just look like Subway. It made me look like the game called Subway because they were so spray
they
on the
they might
game.
have been inspired. They might have been inspired by that.
Oh, maybe, and I don't know why the government do it so strictly because
Hmm. I think that's the first reaction. That's the first reaction. Oh, this is horrible. We have to stop it. Um, but then the second reaction might be, okay, let's have an art contest.
Maybe
Let's
in the
see who can
future.
do a good job. I don't know. Some of it is culture, and I don't know. Um, we'll see what happens. But I haven't been on the train. I haven't been on the metro because it's not in an area of Hanoi that I usually go to. But I
Mhm.
hope it's successful because um, I hope we get other lines, and I hope we get the ability for people to travel more easily, to go to work, to go to school, to go shopping. Because if we do a good job at building and improving public transportation, then
Mhm.
maybe it is possible to ban motorbikes in the center of Hanoi in a few years. Maybe it's possible. I like the idea of doing it, but only if there's good alternatives. You can't. The message cannot be, okay, now you have to buy a car. The answer needs to be, no, here's an easy and cheap way to get around without, without using motorbikes.
Mhm.
I think traffic. I think traffic is going to be the next, or the major challenge, the major environmental challenge for many growing cities like Hanoi.
Mhm.
Thanks,
Vietnam.
everybody, and give us comments. You can ask either of Edward or me questions in the comments, and we'll try to answer them. And thank you for listening.